sprawling estate of Blackwood Manor stood on the outskirts of town, shrouded in perpetual mist. For decades it had been abandoned, its towering spires and cracked stone walls falling into ruin. Yet its eerie beauty was undeniable, and it called to those foolish or brave enough to enter. When I inherited the manor from a distant relative I'd never met, I had no choice but to visit. My life in the city had been unraveling, a failed career, a string of bad relationships, in mounting debt. Blackwood Manor felt like a lifeline, albeit a strange one. The air grew colder as I approached the gates, the iron rusted but still imposing. The wind carried the faint scent of damp earth and decay. Pushing the creaking gate open, I made my way up the overgrown path. The manor loomed ahead, its windows dark and lifeless, its doors gaping like a maw. Inside, the air was heavy with dust and the weight of forgotten years. The furniture, though covered in sheets, hinted at the wealth that had once defined the Blackwood lineage. A grand staircase spiraled upward, its wooden banister carved with intricate designs. At the top of the staircase, a painting caught my eye, a portrait of a woman with piercing blue eyes and raven black hair. She seemed to be watching me, her gaze almost alive. A sudden fluttering sound broke the silence, and I turned sharply. Perched on the windowsill was a raven, its feathers glossy and black as night. It stared at me with unblinking eyes, its presence both unsettling and magnetic. "Shoo," I said, waving my hand. The raven tilted its head, but didn't move. Instead, it let out a low, guttural croak that sent a shiver down my spine. That night, I couldn't sleep. The creaks and groans of the old house seemed amplified in the darkness. And then there was the raven. It perched on a branch outside my window, its silhouette stark against the pale moonlight. Its unblinking eyes bore into me, and its croaks grew louder, almost insistent. By morning, the raven was gone, but the unease lingered. I spent the day exploring the manor, hoping to distract myself. The library was a treasure trove of ancient books and journals, their leather-bound covers cracked with age. One journal in particular caught my attention. Its pages were filled with elegant handwriting, the ink faded but legible. The entries belonged to Eleanor Blackwood, the woman in the portrait. She wrote about the raven, a creature she called Corvus. According to her, the raven wasn't an ordinary bird, but a harbinger, a messenger of dark forces. She described vivid nightmares, eerie whispers in the night, and an overwhelming sense of being watched. The last entry was chilling. "Corvus demands a soul. I fear mine is next." That night, the dreams began. I was standing in a forest, the trees gnarled and twisted, their branches clawing at the sky. The raven perched on my shoulder, its claws digging into my flesh. It whispered in my ear, though I couldn't understand the words. The forest seemed alive, its shadows moving and coiling around me. I woke up drenched in sweat, the sensation of the raven's claws still lingering. Outside, the bird was back, perched on the same branch. Its eyes seemed to glow in the darkness, and I felt a pull, an unexplainable urge to go to it. The following days blurred together. The dreams grew more vivid, the whispers more insistent. The raven was always there, watching, waiting. I tried to leave the manor, but every time I reached the gates, I felt an invisible force pulling me back. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I discovered a hidden door behind the library's bookshelf. It led to a spiral staircase descending into darkness. Armed with a flashlight, I made my way down. The air grew colder with each step, and the smell of damp stone filled my nostrils. At the bottom of the stairs was a chamber, its walls lined with strange symbols carved into the stone. In the center was an altar, and on it lay a black feather, larger than any I'd ever seen. As I approached, the symbols on the walls began to glow, casting an eerie light. The raven appeared, its form materializing from the shadows. It perched on the altar, its eyes burning with an unnatural fire. "Why are you here?" I whispered, my voice trembling. The raven let out a screech that echoed through the chamber. The shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around me, and then I heard it, a voice deep and resonant, echoing in my mind. The debt must be paid. Debt? What debt? I demanded. The raven tilted its head and the voice spoke again. The Blackwood line made a pact. Power in exchange for souls. You are the last. You will pay. Panic surged through me. I didn't make any pact. This has nothing to do with me. The shadows tightened around me, and the raven's eyes glowed brighter. Blood binds. The pact is eternal. Desperate, I grabbed the feather from the altar. A shockwave of energy surged through me, and the chamber dissolved into darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the library, the feather still clutched in my hand. The raven was gone, but the feeling of being watched remained. I knew I couldn't stay in the manor any longer. That night I packed my belongings and fled, but the raven followed. No matter where I went, it was there, perched on a street lamp, a windowsill, or a tree branch. The dreams continued, more vivid and terrifying than ever. The whispers grew louder, the voice more insistent. And then one night, it all became clear. In the dream, I was back in the forest. The raven spoke to me, its words finally understandable. To break the pact, another must take your place. A soul for a soul. I woke up with a start, the weight of its words pressing down on me. The raven perched on the foot of my bed, its eyes gleaming with anticipation. I knew what I had to do. The next day I returned to the manor, this time with a plan. I placed the black feather on the altar and waited. The symbols on the walls glowed once more, and the raven appeared, its form flickering between bird and shadow. I offer a trade, I said, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. And the raven tilted its head, its burning eyes fixed on me. Who? I thought of the one person who had wronged me the most, the one whose betrayal had sent my life spiraling out of control. My ex-partner, who had stolen from me, lied to me, and left me broken. Take them, I said. Take their soul and leave me in peace. The raven let out a screech, and the shadows surged forward, wrapping around me. When I awoke, I was alone in the chamber. The feather was gone and the symbols no longer glowed. I returned to the city, unsure if the pact had been fulfilled. But the raven no longer followed me, and the dreams ceased. Weeks later, I learned of my ex-partner's sudden and inexplicable death. A chill ran through me, but I pushed the thought aside. I was free, or so I thought. One night as I prepared for bed, a familiar sound reached my ears, the fluttering of wings. I turned to the window, and there it was. The raven, its eyes glowing with an eerie light. It perched on the windowsill, its presence a dark reminder. The debt is never truly paid, the voice echoed in my mind. And then the shadows came for me.